Hello, everyone. Good day. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ryan Macasero, multimedia reporter for Rappler. And well, I'm usually in Cebu, but today I am in the United States in the Bay Area, California. And joining me today is the newly confirmed Attorney General of California, Rob Bonta, who is the first Filipino American to be appointed to this position. And he was also the a member of the State Assembly for 8 years prior to becoming the Attorney General. Thank you so much for joining us.
Honored to be here. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you. And let's just get started. So, I guess the big story in the news right now is the increasing attacks on Asian Americans here in California and actually across the country. So, as Attorney General, what are our plans to stop these unprovoked attacks? Especially, there are many that have happened to Asian American senior citizens.
When it comes to anti-API
Yeah.
hate violence right now, we are in a full-on state of emergency, in a full-on state of crisis. And to the API community, I say, I see you, I value you, I am you, and I will have your back and I will fight for you. And the California Attorney General has a lot of authority, a lot of tools in the toolbox, a lot of levers to pull to be able to help those thousands of Asian Americans who've been attacked, ranging from being spit on and yelled at, to being shoved down and punched in the face, to being slashed across the face and murdered. And it is unacceptable, and we cannot accept the unacceptable. So what is really important, and that we've seen a lot of recently, is leaders at every level, elected officials, community leaders, and others rising up to condemn and denounce the hate. And we're also turning the pain and the anger and the fear that we're feeling into action that will help prevent and help heal. And the Attorney General has some specific roles and authority as well, including working with law enforcement to help make sure that they can properly identify and investigate hate crimes. We know that many incidents that actually could be identified and investigated as hate crimes, almost half of them are not pursued as hate crimes when they could be and should be. So working with law enforcement to help make sure that we're identifying and investigating properly is something we can work on, making sure that law enforcement and community members have greater trust, so that with that trust, community members feel comfortable coming forward as victims or witnesses of hate crimes. So they can properly report and get justice, and victims can heal. Right now, there is not that trust. There is a lack of trust, and there's massive underreporting of hate crimes. We need to have victim-centered services to make sure that victims are supported when they're hurt, and they're able to heal, that they're provided with mental health support, with trauma-informed care, with culturally competent services, with language access. We also need to make sure we have a better tracking and reporting system, so we know the exact contours and nuances and details of the challenge that we're facing. The Attorney General's office also has some civil tools where civil actions can be brought against those who perpetuate hate based on civil rights violations. We can also be working in our public schools to help prevent bullying of API children and provide restorative justice and cultural awareness. Instead, we can also investigate and take on white supremacist groups that are formed around and are perpetuating hate. We can also work with elected leaders throughout the state to help lean in to this moment and support the API community. So there's many ways that the Attorney General can get involved, can take action, can support our API community during this very challenging, painful moment with so many horrific acts of hate being perpetuated against our community. And I intend to use all of them.
Okay. And I know you're not in the assembly anymore, but is there any movement or proposed legislation currently in either house to address this as well?
There is, as you might expect, quite a few from API leaders as well as allies who see the current state of affairs for what it is, an unacceptable set of affairs, and the horrific attacks as being requiring action. And so there have been multiple proposals from a statewide hate crime hotline to a grant system to provide funding for Asian American community centers and other community-based organizations to have greater safety and security. There was a bill that provided more support for victims and more restorative justice programs. There was another bill that helps address and take on white supremacist groups throughout the state. So there's quite a variety of proposals being put forth by the California State Legislature to address the problem as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and just to go back a little bit, for those who might not know, it was in the news that Attorney General Bonta is the first Filipino American to hold this position of the State Attorney General of California. So, can you talk a little bit about how your experience as someone who was born in the Philippines and who came here at a young age, and I think both of your parents were activists. How has your experience as a Filipino American shaped your view of politics?
My experience, my identity, and my parents shape everything that I do. My experience being born in the Philippines, in Quezon City, in St. Luke's Hospital, and coming to California when I was 2 months old. My mother's experience being a 28-year-old adult who came to the United States for the first time after a 3-week ship ride. Our family's rebuilding of our lives in California after being in the Philippines. My parents' commitment to social justice, their work with the United Farm Workers of America, and our living in La Paz in a trailer for our family of 5, a stone's throw away from the home of Cesar Chavez, working in that great movement with Filipino Americans fighting side by side with Latinos to create greater justice and more opportunity and more fairness. My dad's commitment, marching in Selma, fighting for voting rights and civil rights, and standing there in Selma with Martin Luther King Jr. My mom's commitment after the declaration of martial law and the dictatorship of Ferdinand Marcos and all the human rights abuses to fight against that and to restore democracy until it was restored in 1986 with the People Power Revolution. That shaped me. My parents' fight for justice is in my DNA and is hardwired into who I am. And my experience as a Filipino American, born in the Philippines and being raised here, going to rallies and demonstrations and protests with my mom regularly in the fight against the Ferdinand Marcos dictatorship. That's what I was raised around, a fierce community of everyday people who are fighting for justice. And that's what I remember growing up. That's what inspired me to do more. My parents are my biggest supporters and my biggest inspirations, and their legacy of change making, of fighting injustice, righting historic wrongs, and helping people is really what's inspired me in my career in public service. So I hope to be part of and continue in my own way that legacy of uplifting people and fighting injustice and righting wrongs.
Also, California is home to the largest Filipino American population in the United States. I think we have about 1.5 or 1.6 million Filipino Americans, and we've seen a lot more Filipino Americans run for local office and at the state level, and we've had one try to run in the U.S. Congress. So, how can you talk about how important it is for for more Filipino Americans to get involved in maybe running for office and also organizing around issues that matter to them?
Absolutely. And it's so important. And I'm so proud and thankful to see more Filipino Americans stepping up and stepping in and leaning in and seizing our power and owning our power. We're powerful. We're talented. We're fierce. We create change. That's been who we are. It's defined who we are and what we've done, from fighting for independence against Spain to fighting for self-determination from the United States of America to starting the farm worker movement with the Delano Grape Strike of 1965, and with the Agricultural Workers Organizing Committee and Larry Itliong taking that famous stand at the International Hotel to protect our manongs and fight for tenant protections, and to support our elders in fighting for social justice. The list goes on and on. But we have always been on the vanguard, on the cutting edge, fighting for justice, making change. And it's that spirit and that legacy that inspires me. And I think something that all of our community members can tap into when asking ourselves, what can I do to make our community better? And taking on more positions of influence and power to help people, political positions and publicly elected positions is very important. So we're on the rise. We're just getting started. There's a lot more to do. And I'm very proud of our Filipino American community and our accomplishments so far.
And I know you're only 2 or 3 weeks into your role of Attorney General. So can you talk a little bit about what your priorities are for at least for the first year?
Well, the way I see the role is the California Attorney General is the people's attorney, to fight for everyday folks who've been hurt and harmed and abused and mistreated, and making sure that the most vulnerable, the voiceless, are being treated fairly and justly, and that those who abuse their power are not able to do so and hurt others, and that I'm protecting the little guy from the abuse of power and the overreach of authority of the big guy. That's the role. It takes on so many forms. We're working on quite a number of issues. We've talked about anti-API hate violence. That's going to be a top priority. We're also making sure that individuals who are treated unfairly in the criminal justice system are treated with more fairness, more compassion, and are given a second chance. Making sure that communities that live at the intersection of pollution and poverty, who are forced to drink dirty water or breathe unhealthy air, are protected. Making sure that individuals and families in California aren't being cheated by multinational corporations. So there's a long list. Protecting Californians from frauds and scams, from human trafficking and elder abuse, from consumer abuse. So there's so many areas to work on, but they're all framed by that idea, that driving value of being the people's attorney and making your fights in California my fights, and taking care of Californians and having their back.
Okay, yeah. And so we have a new president in the United States, Joe Biden, and Vice President Kamala Harris, who's from the Bay Area as well. And we've seen them, their cabinet members have been very diverse. So I wanted to ask, do you see more Filipino Americans possibly, becoming governor or running for, or being appointed in the cabinet? What do you see for our community?
I see blue skies full of opportunity, and I see our talent and skills and contributions being recognized more and more. I see more Filipino Americans stepping up and owning and seizing that power, taking risks and putting themselves out there to run for office or to apply to be considered for appointments. And that's only going to lead to greater representation throughout the state, throughout the nation, in all places of influence and authority, whether it be government, elected office, corporate boards, community leadership positions. It's really important that we continue our rise and continue to take on those positions of influence and authority, so that we can help others and help our communities and help our state and nation.
The previous administration, I think most people would agree, especially people of color, was a painful time, I think, for the United States, especially with there's a lot of civil unrest and, overt racism that we've seen all over the internet. So for you, what do you think it will take for us to move forward from this, with this new administration and, this new period in American politics?
We're still feeling the pain and the lingering effects of the prior administration. To me, that's in large part what all the anti-API hate violence stems from a former occupant of the White House who used the biggest bullhorn on the planet to regularly and consistently push out messages of hate and cruelty, of xenophobia and racism, things like China virus or Kung flu. And it divided us, and it gave people permission and license to act on their worst instincts, their instincts of hate. And it turned folks against one another instead of bringing us together. And we need our leaders to continue to do what we've been doing since the former occupant of the White House has been gone, which is to lead with messages of unity and togetherness and love and common cause and a common future that we're all a part of, and we all need to lean into together, and that we need to take care of one another and look out for each other. And we need to remember that inescapable network of mutuality that Martin Luther King Jr. talked about so eloquently, that we're all interconnected and that we're going to rise together or not at all. It's not a zero-sum game where my success is dependent on your failure. No, we can all succeed together, and there are win-wins, and we can uplift all of us together. I need to make sure there's no leak on your side of our boat, as the governor of California says so eloquently, showing how we're all in this together and we need to take care of each other. So I think we are still suffering some of the lingering effects. It doesn't go away immediately, but we are rebuilding and we are restaking our claims to a different future, a different set of values, a different way of interacting with one another and living together. And it requires as many people who are willing to be vocal and public to talk about what that looks like and how we should treat each other. Diversity is our strength. It's not something that we should tolerate. It's something we should celebrate. It makes us strong and powerful. And it also requires us to understand one another and our differences, and see those differences as not something to be frightened of, worried about, threatened by, but to see them as contributions to a common future that makes us all better and makes us all stronger. So we're going to get more of that with this new administration, but we are still suffering from the prior 4 years and the mark that was left by the former occupant of the White House.
All right. Okay. Just to wrap this up, do you have any message or anything for our viewers who are in the Philippines and also Filipino Americans here who might be watching?
Yes, I am deeply honored to be the first Filipino American California Attorney General in the history of the state, to have been before that the first Filipino American state legislator in the history of California. I thank the Filipino American community for your incredible support for me, for believing in me and fighting for me and pushing me forward and lifting me up. You've always been there. I will always fight for you. I will never forget where I'm from or who I am. It's my identity. It's my values. It's my experience, and it informs everything I do. So I'm going to work my hardest to help as many people as possible, do as much good as I can, and make you proud.
Thank you so much. We've been speaking with California Attorney General Rob Bonta. Again, I'm Ryan Macasero in the Bay Area, California. Thank you so much